Any other aesthetics that folks want to mention? I can't remember who mentioned it, but one of you talked about the aesthetics of the actual equipment itself, right? So that the Myaamia game, not all the time, but some of the time when we play, we use wooden sticks like the one I'm holding in my hand here today. Whereas for myself, and when the game started in our community, we started by using metal and plastic sticks here, right? So mass manufactured sticks produced by businesses that exist all over the United States and is international. Versus a stick like this stick has a story, right? So this stick comes from Wisconsin, from the Myaamia Nation, from their reservation in Wisconsin. And I made a part of this stick, but a part of this stick was made by a man named Joey Wanape, who's from the Myaamia Nation. He's one of their stick makers. So the stick itself, the wood for this stick is white oak. It comes from a white oak tree. And that tree was harvested by Joey on their reservation for the stick making activity that he did with Myaamia, who came to visit it. So the stick, the aesthetics of this stick are connected, like to growing on the Myaamia reservation, to the work of the Myaamia people, to Joey being willing to share his knowledge with us to make sticks, and then being able to play with this stick today, right? So the aesthetics of the stick, there's a history here. This is the style stick our ancestors were using before Europeans arrived. And then there's a contemporary reality where this, for me, is connected to a very specific place, the Myaamia reservation, and then to a very specific person, Joey Wanape. And for all of the sticks in the bag here today, they all have their own story, their own connection to people. So most of the sticks in this bag were actually made by Layla's grandfather. Right, so he worked these sticks. A few of them he had help with, but most of them he made, right? So they're connected to, I think of them as being connected to a very specific person and to a family group, and then connected to land in northern Indiana. Right? So the aesthetics of the game also can live out in the equipment itself. And that can also extend into like the balls. So this is one kind of pakwa-kone, one kind of lacrosse ball. This one's leather. It's cord wrapped in its core. So I wrapped it with cord, and then it's covered. This is an elkai, or 2 spheres. So this is one that I made. And then my other pocket is one that, again, Layla's grandfather Larry made. This one's made from a knot of an ash tree, and it's scraped and turned into a ball, and it has 4 holes drilled in it, which you'll be able to hear in a second. The ball then whistles and it flies through the air. And this is a kind of ball that our ancestors used in the early games that were recorded in like the 16 and 1700s. It's not quite safe to play with today without headgear on, but we use it for demo purposes. So it's a lot of fun to kind of do show and tell with rather than playing with today. So the aesthetics run throughout the equipment. So just to talk a little bit about kind of the history of the sticks, this is what in terms of the scholars of the lacrosse call an Iroquois style stick. This is not the style stick our ancestors used, right? Ours was a complete circle. It's not just Iroquois people who play with this stick, but that's kind of how the scholars who study the game describe it. So it doesn't have a complete circle. The sidewall is usually made out of gut, rawhide, and pulled really tight, and the rest of the pocket's leather. So you can see it kind of looks like a shepherd's crook. This is the stick that plastic sticks that began being made in the 1980s were modeled after. So everyone, whether they were native or American, played with these kind of sticks up into the 1980s. So college lacrosse on the East Coast, everyone played with wooden sticks. You used to be able to buy them all over the place. They're harder to find now because these then replaced them. So these are mass produced, a lot cheaper, and obviously require the same level of knowledge.
At the end of August.
And this style stick, again, about the story, this one was made by Myaamia in a separate workshop with Joey Wanape. This one he made in Chicago. But it has a different style head, this teardrop head. It's another kind of stick head that they make at the Myaamia reservation, and some Ojibwe people make sticks with a teardrop head. And then this is an example of one of the sticks that Larry found. And one of the things that, in addition to how to make a lot more of these sticks, which Larry then especially taught Doug Bakongi on how to do, Larry also really figured out for us how to perfect the stringing system. So you can see the stringing system I used on my stick is a little more cumbersome and not quite as smooth. And Larry's stringing system is a lot more smooth at the top, so it's better for gameplay. Also better for adjustment, so you can adjust pocket depth. So, just one more quick story, and then we'll turn to teaching technique at play. The way in which lacrosse, like the way in which I encountered lacrosse first, is kind of a funny story. I did my undergraduate in Chicago, at University of Illinois Chicago, and I'd already been involved for a couple of years in language and culture learning. Daryl was teaching language in Indiana, and I learned that lacrosse was a game that our people played, but we weren't playing it at that point. So I read about it in books, and we were interested in trying to bring games back into language education to help us some of the activities we used to do with our language and play. But we didn't have anyone in our community at that time to play. And I was just walking on campus one day. UIC is a really crowded campus. So you're always it's a big city. You're walking really close to people. And I saw one of these sticks stuck in someone's backpack like that. And I basically stalked the guy and followed him to where he went for his class, and then grabbed him and said, "Hey, that's the lacrosse stick. Where can I learn more about it? Where can I play?" And his name was Adnan. He was from Palatine, Illinois, and he was just trying to start a lacrosse club at UIC. So I joined the lacrosse club and just started going to practices as often as I can to learn the game from him. And that's just how it started. I learned the game with plastic and metal sticks, and then that very next summer. So this is 1997. I took a bunch of sticks I bought to Indiana, to Peru, and we started playing catch and trying to use language playing peekitahaminki. More and more sticks, and then at camp we'd always have breaks to play big lacrosse sticks. And you could clearly see how much the language use exploded inside the game. It was really, really powerful to see. And I think one of the key tipping point moments for me was we did a game in Peru, in a city park in Peru, Indiana, and there were folks there from Oklahoma, folks there from the Miami community in Peru, and some little kids from across the street who weren't Miami at all. They weren't Myaamia. They just wandered from across the street, and they're like, "Hey, can we play?" And so just said, "Sure." And they grabbed some sticks and they joined in and started playing. And we didn't tell them anything. We didn't tell them who we were or what we were doing. They just got some sticks and started playing. And after about 10-15 minutes of playing the game, they were hearing everyone else using the Myaamia language, and they started imitating what they were hearing because it was the only way to get the ball. So within 15 minutes, these two kids I'd never met before were screaming "Mini low, mini low, mini low," which means give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. And they picked up a couple other phrases in the course of the game. And it really struck me at that point, just the power of sports to create connections with people, but also if you really want to play, and that's how you really get the ball, people will then use language, right? A lot of the inhibition, the fear of using language disappeared for players. And so that particular thing is stuck with me. And then you all read about sort of the transition to the game with the Seneca music. And that for me remains one of the most powerful relationships that we've created around lacrosse. And I really have to kind of conclude this narrative, my narrative of lacrosse today, just by saying that Jenny Shin, who made the sash that we talked about in the article, she very much had a correct Google Doc that was Patty read that. The next time she saw me, she called me over to correct me. She's like, "That sash is not a traveling trophy. It's not even like a traveling trophy." She's very mad at me. She wanted to correct that line. She said, "That sash is a record of the game between us, and it's a representation of the care that both sides are supposed to have for the game. And the winner of the game takes that sash home to put the record of their victory on there to keep the story going, and then they care for that sash as a demonstration of their care for the competition, care for each other, right? So it's a record of the relationship between the lines and not a fairly really whenever I talk about it now, I always make sure to emphasize what Patty was telling me. She's a very highly respected woman in the Myaamia, Oklahoma area. And in a lot of other ways that we haven't talked about, has been a great help to the Myaamians. So I want to make sure that they're respecting that. And I think we're really looking forward to the end of COVID when we can finally have our game again. So it'll be 2 years that we've had to put the game to rest because of COVID. And hopefully next year we'll be able to have it again. So that's just a kind of a quick overview of the history of how peekitahaminki came back to community. Does anyone have any questions or comments from the story of the Sash story or what I just shared?